Your client should know. They should be conscious about it. You should be conscious about it. Every engineer who's actually designing the solution for the client from that perspective, they should be aware of the repercussions of how many servers do you want to add. Like, I would love to add more and more contingencies based on more and more infrastructure replicas and backups and stuff like that, but how much cost is that adding overall?
Hello everyone, my name is Shuja and we are over here with some exceptional talent discussing regarding how we can optimize our cost, and we'll be having a detailed discussion how we should go by and optimizing your cloud infrastructure cost, and maybe on data perspective and Kubernetes architecture perspective as well. So my name is Shuja Abedin. I have been around this industry for past 13 years and have been involved throughout my journey in the engineering department, coming from networking background, transition towards a cloud and cloud architecture, then handling and leading DevOps culture as well. So that is like my brief introduction how I go by, and have been involved in a lot of product and service based industry as well, and have done a lot of cost optimization on the go. So I would like to introduce Sidra. Sidra.
Hi everyone, my name is Sidra, and I've been in this industry for more than 10 years. I've been towards academic side as well, starting from systems and networking, coming towards cloud and DevOpsing, and then at present I'm also heading a Kubernetes specialized group here in Xgrid. I would love to introduce my colleague, Taimoor.
Hi everyone, my name is Mohammad Taimoor Khan. I've been in the data industry for almost 11 years now. I've worked with mostly on-prem in the start of my industry, but recently, for about 5 years, I've started working on the cloud side. I've been with Xgrid for about 6 months now. I've been looking after the data engineering department and working with these exceptional people. So looking forward to having a good time.
So I can see like we do have everyone more than a decade experience. So this will always help everybody to analyze how exactly should we go by when we are working as a startup, when we are working as an enterprise business, when we are working as a corporate, whatever we say it. So we all have that mixed experience. So I would just start with you, Sidra. When we talk about being cost conscious culture, why it is important, why it is a term out there in the industry, and how exactly we can make sure that this thing is tagged to our cloud architecture as well, how we go by, and what is your experience about it?
Cloud cost consciousness, basically, that is something. The reason why we say that it should be like a culture is because that's like a shared responsibility, right? The whole purpose is to avoid the phenomena of tragedy of commons, basically. Where everybody thinks that, okay, I have access to the cloud and shared resources, and they use it as per their own convenience and requirements. But to give it like a holistic viewpoint of how the cost is being utilized, are the resources being utilized efficiently and all that. So that is something that every person, whoever is dealing with the cloud infrastructure in your company, they should be conscious of it, how they're using, how much, and all those aspects. Those are the aspects that we would be actually catering to throughout this conversation.
So I think you were mainly say okay, we need to like lead with examples, create an ownership culture around the cost optimization and cost saving, whatever we say it. So that is what exactly the conscious culture is all about. So if we want to like dive more deeper into this, Taimoor.
I mean, I could talk about it from the data perspective. If the cost culture isn't there, any analyst or data analyst, be it business analyst, they just want an output, right? When they just want an output, they would want their reports or their queries or their data to be received or be recovered, or for example, the reporting department, right? They would want their reports to run in the most optimal manner, and they'll probably just ask for the most resources so that it runs, and just for one report, and they'll leave it be, and it'll keep on running. And that is something that is not at all healthy for the cloud cost. So I think we need a culture in the company, not just by the stakeholders overall, so that everybody knows what they're doing, what outcomes and the improvements, and what is the positive outcomes that comes from them, having knowledge about cloud costs and how to optimize them and how to take care of the cloud costs. So I think not just from a data perspective, from a general enterprise or a startup or a let's say big four company as well, say everyone needs to be, if they're on cloud, they need to be very educated about the cloud cost optimization techniques and why it is necessary.
So I totally agree with you both folks. But if you ask me, obviously this should be not something that is governed upon people, but it should be coming from the people. So if you ask me, when we want to create a culture, so we need to like take the right steps towards that. What I have seen in my experience, like we used to like celebrate failures, celebrate wins. So whenever there have been any incidents where there was a lot of input towards cost optimization, cost celebration, we always used to celebrate that, to point out the right faults, work on that, point out the right people who actually put an effort on that direction. So I feel creating an ownership culture should be done by leading an example. So like leaders coming out on front, recognizing the people who are working in that direction, no matter what it is. Maybe it could be right sizing, maybe identifying they were doing something wrong in the past, now they have corrected it, whatever. So I know there would be a failure in that, but the celebration is that we came out of it, we succeeded in that, and now we are like putting names out. These are the folks who actually worked on that direction. So I see a culture is something creating from ownership, and that comes when you start recognizing people out there. That's how actually human operate, right? So
In this regard, there's this use case coming to my mind actually, which is pertaining to a recent project that we faced. So when we say cost conscious culture, that also includes not only us, it also includes our clients. Like there was this scenario where obviously whenever there's a startup and the company is boosting, trying to explore its niche, they kind of like go big. And coming from that going big part, as soon as you start realizing, okay, there are certain elements which are redundant, they need to be cut off immediately before they start drilling a hole into your budgets and your overall cloud cost and everything. So recently we tackled that kind of a situation where we saw it, and that's exactly where we realized that it's supposed to be an end-to-end thing. Your client should know, they should be conscious about it, you should be conscious about it. Every engineer who's actually designing the solution for the client from that perspective, they should be aware of the repercussions of how many servers do you want to add. Like I would love to add more and more contingencies based on more and more infrastructure replicas and backups and stuff like that, but how much cost is that adding overall? So that kind of mindfulness, that kind of consciousness that you have to have while even designing the solution, that is what we're talking about when we say cost conscious culture.
I totally like I have been in that that pathway where we supposed to like deliver and deliver and deliver, so we never pat an eye on how exactly we are delivering it. So it's kind of a normal kind of a thing for any startup or maybe any company in a mid tier of their duration. So what I can say, if we have right kind of principles from day one, like creating the right culture of ownership on cost saving and cost optimization on work you are doing, how much is being costing and everything. So I totally agree, governance can put out policies over there to help you understand what you need to do, but the real thing should be coming from the people. So I think we all can agree on the thing that it should be an ownership culture.
Then the next question, that right now we were talking about right sizing, and we were talking about that we should be planning our projects according to it. So what do I need to do to make sure that whenever I need resources, it's the right amount of resources that's there? What can I do for that?
So if you ask me about right capacity planning, so before diving into that, we need to make sure we have the right set of tools informing us about what we have been doing wrong. So looking at that stats, it tells us what exactly we have been executing on the infrastructure. So we will start targeting those things one by one, step by step. we will know what is our ROI against the investment that we are doing on the infrastructure. So, but before that, so like before I'm telling about the right capacity planning, we should be making sure that every right set of tools are monitoring our infrastructure in the cost perspective, so we know what exactly costing us a fortune. So we can then like start targeting step by step to every, maybe we are running a microservice architecture, maybe we are running multiple service architecture in a monolithic way. That independent point is we need to identify which resources are costing us a fortune. Then we need to start monitoring their stats. Either we are like underutilized, either we are overutilized. So these kind of matrices will always point us towards whether we are using the right capacity or not. So whether we need to make sure we do a vertical scaling on that, or maybe we need to do or horizontal scaling on that. That will always help. So the being on the cloud, the best thing is that you always pay as you go. So you don't need to be very mindful about we need to like have the maybe resources spend up every time. You need to like make sure things are running at the right time for the right people. So that is like the initial investigation when we talk about capacity planning. So I would like pass it on like towards Taimoor, and what how exactly you will go by that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Shuja, when it comes to data specifically, capacity planning is really important because as all of you know, both of data is exponentially increasing with streaming data coming in, IoT coming in. So you need to be really you need to be really thoughtful about the point that what the customer requires and what data volume they're expecting. So in that perspective, I think capacity planning is really important at first, so that once you plan properly, it gets easier for you to look at the costing of cloud. And like you said, with cloud, you pay as you go.
So Sidra, but since in Kubernetes, the famous thing is always about Kubernetes that the cost can go out of control very soon because there are a lot of pods running and everything. So how you guys go by when we talk about Kubernetes cluster architecture, which is a very high available and everything in that?
I think always the first step is always obviously trying to be accurate with the requirement gathering when we're talking about capacity planning initially. But then that always needs to be backed up and maintained by a continuous proactive monitoring and having a deeper know-how of what resources are exactly being utilized and how much is their need to actually be up. Because I mean, as Taimoor and you've already mentioned that with cloud we can actually they charge you on the go, so they can expand or shrink as and when redundant resources can be deallocated as and when required. But when you have Kubernetes clusters and especially the ones which are like in shared form, so to monitor that we need deeper levels of observability. I mean, the more observability that you have, the more you can actually use that information to fine grain and fine tune the usage of your resources, and hence, optimize your cost to its, maximum and overall, charge you the minimalistic budget and everything.
So I kind of totally agree with that. And when we are like migrating or in hosting anything on the cloud, the real information about the capacity of the application comes from the background data, come from the history of the how exactly this application was running before. So that kind of give you the baseline, and obviously after continuous monitoring and observability, you will create a better understanding of how exactly the capacity should be looks like.
Because eventually, obviously, the goal is that the resources that I need, they are there.
Yeah.
But if I don't need them at any point, they should be deallocated and I should not be being charged for that. Now, there are 1,001 cost models coming up. The cloud providers are regularly coming up with models how they can manage that. And the improvement is happening, right? So we need to stay up to date with that. And to monitor it, there's like this huge trend towards understanding and exploring observability solutions for Kubernetes and cloud in general.
Wouldn't you guys agree that I mean, there's a thought that to utilize the scaling option of cloud, we do require very extensive monitoring tools like Shuja mentioned and you mentioned. But at the same time, we they go hand in hand. With monitoring tools, you need to plan accordingly with capacity planning, and so I think it all goes hand in hand. If I can sum it up, everything goes hand in hand with cloud. And if you keep everything is in sync, you can easily reach the goal of cloud cost optimization, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we three agree on that. I would say like let's just go by what exactly autoscaling is and how exactly like Kubernetes team manage autoscaling. And when we talk about that, since we will not just need one server, maybe we need multiple servers to run our Kubernetes cluster or maybe clusters. So how exactly you guys go by when we say autoscaling?
So in Kubernetes, we do like if you want to go towards maybe AWS based Kubernetes solution or Azure based or G Cloud based, in all of those there are models which allow you to fully auto scale a Kubernetes cluster, which inherently what it means is that whenever there's a new service to be deployed, your container, it would actually check if the pod is already if the node is already there for this new pod to be launched. If it's not, a new node would be allocated, and the pod would be made available on it, right? So it's essentially like it's growing when there are more services. And similarly, once there's a pod running on some node and the services are not as being extensively used as they were before, and the pods start going off and the services start shrinking themselves. So in that case, what happens is all the extraneous nodes, they are like being deallocated on the parallel as well. So that is one thing that is automatically what the cloud providers are already providing us. So that was an overview of how the cloud providers inherently provide you with some level of autoscale. Now, where we come in and what we do is we implement observability solutions even among them to get a more fine-grained understanding of how the whole cluster is running. And based on that, we decide how many pods and how many services need to be scaled and need to be cut down, maybe based on the however the traffic is coming in and however the service requirement is. So that's what we do, and obviously it's very deeply linked to our observability solutions.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I have been experienced these things in my past, so I think I can go on that more and more. But before going into that, I would really like Taimoor just chip in what exactly data engineers face when they are working on cloud infrastructure, because I know things can really go bad when it comes
things
to,
are very difficult for data
for
engineering
exactly,
database
because
side
we
to
know we
auto-scale.
need to store data on the
Yes,
cloud,
yeah.
and we are sure we cannot miss that as well, and we make sure that we need to be readily available as well. So how you people go by with that?
Like, I really appreciate that you guys understand what data engineers go through, but yeah, exactly. Because data is something that's constantly increasing, like I previously said, and it's something that you blink and you can miss how quickly it grows, right? So we need to implement. What we go through, what happens is that if on the top of my head, an example would be, the load jobs, the ETL pipelines, data pipelines, they require good processing, right? So we usually all the capacity planning is done around that and the data. So what happens is that with the pipelines time, there's a load job timing. It usually runs off hours. What happens is that you have different jobs that execute. That runs. That's provided. The full system performance, all the resources are allocated. That runs absolutely great, right? But what happens is that without proper monitoring tools, like you said, and observability, and people actually feeling the ownership, they keep the same resources allocated when during the work hours when they're only data or business analysts working, and they don't require that much resources, and that is a very big cost leak for us. Even dashboards and reports to an extent require resources, but not probably In some cases they do, but usually they don't require as much resources as data pipelines and proper data workflows. So what we feel is that we need to really make sure that we can schedule the auto scaling according to the time of the day. When the load jobs are executing, you need to upscale, you need to give all the full resources to the data pipelines. But at the same time, when it's not the time of the day when load jobs are executing, we need to downscale so that we can save cost a lot by because data analysts, business analysts, they need to do an analysis, but they don't require as much resources.
So I totally agree with the auto scaling terminology. We need to understand this is not something that cloud introduced it. Yeah, it is happening automatically. Before that, we always used to have a human kicking in another server and doing it for us. So, but there have been always dependency and reliability factor as well, because sometimes we just forget about turning it off. This is what exactly auto scaling is all helping us about. So we we are just making sure to understand what kind of scaling we need when we are scaling our architecture. Maybe our application could be CPU based scaling, maybe it could be memory based, maybe it could be traffic handling based, because like there are a lot of IoT devices, they can like handle more and more compute, but they cannot like handle more and more traffic. So we need to like have the right set of policies and rules to make our infrastructure scalable and elastic as much as possible as well, so it can like go up as soon the traffic is coming in, and it can go down as well as soon as that traffic that load has been went out. So this is what exactly auto scaling is all about. Things are happening without any human intervention.
So it has been a very interesting correlation that I see developing over here, that we are continuously talking about monitoring, we're continuously talking about observability, and we're continuously relating it with cost optimization. So I think it's imperative at this point that we start pointing things out that, okay, fine, cost optimization is totally dependent on our monitoring tools. So what kind of monitoring tools would you use? I mean, I would start with Taimoor, because I do know from the case studies we've been seeing that whenever the whole infrastructure cost is always on one side and the database cost, they're like pretty much on the other side. So Taimoor, I would love to hear more about like how exactly are we monitoring these things.
So, Sidra, thank you again for acknowledging that what we go through. But what I'd like to add, definitely, because when it comes to monitoring, we need to keep a very close eye on how the data sets grow, what state the databases are in, whether they're running anything or they're in an idle state and just they're running and increasing the cost. Because like Sidra, you mentioned, database costs are on the higher side for cloud. So for these, what we do is that for storage, we have a lot of tools like AWS has CloudWatch. That lets us know the exact storage that levels we're on. And for managed databases like Amazon RDS and Google Cloud SQL, we have Google Cloud, we have a Google Cloud Monitor, which monitors the databases on a regular instance and generates alerts when nothing is executing and it's in an idle state, so that we can automate that. So that is when we can downscale, or we can turn off the database for till when it is required. Same with Amazon RDS. It has a monitoring tool built in which monitors the database regularly, and whenever it's in an idle state, it generates an alert which we can then again automate to turn it down. But these are the databases and the storage costs. These are tremendous, I would rather say, when you compare it to other functions like Cloud Functions or AWS Lambda, or even cloud storage isn't that much because it doesn't cost as much. But like I said, blink an eye and your cloud volume will be through the roof. So this is basically how we monitor. Yeah. Shuja, please.
So if you ask me, I have been working like for more than a decade on the cloud infrastructure. So these cloud providers are providing right sort of tools to like monitor your infrastructure. Not just monitor your infrastructure, they are also helping you monitor the cost of the infrastructure as well. If we talk about AWS, the other day they giving you, like, if you go back a decade, they start giving you billing but then people starting asking about nitty gritty of the billing details, so they gave you cost explorer. And now just now they have given more insight on the cost, exactly what part of the service is costing you in that specific service. So if you ask me, there is like multiple factors. Maybe I am being charged because of data transfer, maybe I'm being charged because I'm using high compute resources. So there are always alternatives out there available. If we talk about data transfer, we need to like smartly plan our infrastructure. I have seen multiple customer having their infrastructure on the public cloud, and in fact not just public cloud, even the inter-service communication are being happening to from the internet, like from the public cloud. So when we talk communicating through the public cloud, the data transfer cost is different. But when we talk about talking within services within the private network, like within the AWS network, the cost is different. So we need to like smartly plan our infrastructure. That's how we can like limit our data transfer costs. So this is one of the examples from my experience. Other than that, we can like go for reserve and spot instances. I know we understand spot instances do turn off on the need by basis, and we cannot implement it everywhere, but we can utilize it smartly in our infrastructure. If we say we have a batching that, like that you mentioned, we need to make sure our batching algorithm or our reporting needs to be executed on a specific time. I think this is the best use case scenario where you can use spot instances, because they are just throwing the data out on the reporting platform, and that's where it is required. So spot doesn't cost you a fortune. In fact, those resources AWS have spare on their infrastructure, and they are looking for someone, please take it up, and at least we can get something out of it. So that's how exactly Spot can help you optimize the cost. Similarly, go with reserve instances. I know I need this kind of capacity, and I'm not going out of business for like next 5 or 10 years. Why I should be like going still on the pay as you go model? I can have a reserve instances where obviously I am paying maybe some upfront, and maybe I'm not going for some upfront as well. AWS have very smart models around that as well. If you just commit that you will be using this for next 1 year or maybe 6 months, they will like just create your cycle of billing according to that, and they will just charge you more or less than on demand or maybe a pay as you go model. So this is where these kind of smart methodologies will always help you. But since you said we already have that monitoring data, and there is always a pain where there is our lower environments. By lower I mean staging, test, QA, UAT, dev, whatever you call it. These kind of environments are also running for multiple companies 24/7. We have onboarded a company on our panel. What we realized, we can like easily impact 35% of cost of their infrastructure by just turning the infrastructure off during the non-off hours. During the off hours. So this is how exactly we go by. There is a very smart tool known as Cloud Custodian. It's an open source tool. Maybe many people don't know about it, but what exactly it is used for, it can like we implement policies as a code in the infrastructure of the customer. So how this help us in optimizing the cost? We just created a policy like after 6 p.m. everything needs to be turned off in the infrastructure, and it should be turning back on next day on 8 a.m. before 8 a.m. So this policy just executes after one another and make sure infrastructure is up before everybody is available on the floor, and it's turned off when everybody is not on the floor. And similarly, over the weekend we are doing the same infrastructure, same kind of policy execution. So these kind of smart methodologies always help you optimize the cost as much as possible. But I know this is like high level cloud perspective. I would really like to like deep dive on the Kubernetes perspective and observability. I heard that there's Robusta helping you on creating observability. There's a lot of like tools and open source tools that contribution as well on that. So how exactly you guys go by that, and how it helps you optimize the cost further?
Yes, thank you, Shuja. On Kubernetes side, obviously, as I mentioned earlier as well, that there's some of it observability and tracking that's provided with the native cloud dashboards that are there. But then the additional one that we do, and luckily we see a lot of work being happening in this area. There's Pixie, there's Robusta. And there are many more tools which are actually doing the in-depth observability and returning you all those detailed logs of your Kubernetes cluster, which helps you kind of like granularly have more control over your cluster and how it's being shared. Maybe you might have a multi-tenant environment, maybe you have shared among your business units or something like that. So in either the cases, they provide you a way more granular outlook on what's happening. And another thing, interestingly, their other tools have come up as well, which is like cube cost and open cost and harness. And what they do is exactly, they if it's a cloud deployment, they would get ingrained. You use the APIs, cloud cost APIs, to monitor the cost part. And they would be more delving deeper into every details of the pods running, each individual pod, on which node it's running, all its usage and everything, and translating that and giving it to you in form of the cost, budget, and overall cost that's happening at your end. Right. So in overall, in terms of Kubernetes, I see this as a very good new emerging field, which is using all of these observability and cost monitoring tools together, so that overall we are able to monitor and control our budgets.
And so the best part about this is that as an Xgrid, we are working on multiple direction for Pixie and Robusta, and when having some open source contribution.
Yes, what generally happens is, sometimes their line of development and growth for new starter projects, which the companies open up, and then they kind of keep holding on to them, trying to maybe see how the future of that particular development line would look like but still what's happening over there is the resources are running, and it's there. Yes, you might be in ready state, but there's a cost attached to it. So if you can simply automate those things. If we do not have a ready project, it takes a while to actually set up a new project for them. So in that case, the CI/CD and the automation, as many automation tools that we have, based on IAC scripts and stuff like that. So what we did was we automated the whole project deployment, and that reduced the overall deployment time. So now if you need that project again, we can deploy it in 15 minutes. And if you don't need it anymore, then let's just cut it out.
Yeah.
So I think in a nutshell, I think all three of us would agree. If we have all the tools, we have all the automation tools, the cost monitoring tools, and all the other monitoring tools. It's just a matter of using them proactively and properly
automatically as well.
And automatically, yeah, to actually get the proper cost optimization going on, right?
Yeah. So I would really go into closure of the discussion. So what if I am an owner of a large and complex infrastructure? So how exactly, I know we have already discussed a lot of things, maybe this answer would be a pointer thing, but I have a large and complex infrastructure. So what should be the steps I would be implementing to make sure I have I should not be having a high operating cost on that? I know that there would be always an ROI in the discussion, but let's keep it a technical discussion on that. How I make sure that what I do need to have in the infrastructure, what I don't.
I think number one, let's start from the beginning, like we started. Proper requirements being gathered, proper capacity planning being done, proper monitoring tools being assigned from the start of the project, cloud, and even before the requirement gathering, cloud conscious culture being implemented, right? So everybody knows why we're doing what we're doing, right? And then if you deep dive into say data, you need to have proper capacity planning, sizing regarding the data. You have to have the proper autoscaling. You have to have the proper resources allocated for the data pipelines and stuff. You need to have good development optimization skills, so to make sure that each data pipeline is as optimized as it is, because like you would have seen as well, bad development can also lead to growing costs at some point. And Exactly, and then to round it all off, because we've talked about all the points. I think we need to have good monitoring and observability, and then again make sure that everything is automated, and we make good use of all the tools and technologies and autoscaling and everything that cloud provides us.
I think I would agree with all the points you have mentioned. You left very few points that I can just add up on that. Maybe just one of those would be, I need to make sure this is a continuous step, not just one time effort. It should be like monitor, repeat,
And evolving.
evolve. Exactly. And you need to make sure you keep yourself updated with the cloud offerings that out there. It's always helping you as a customer to save cost and deliver more. So these kind of operators, like if I say GCP, if I say Azure, AWS, they are all working for your, obviously they are making fortune out of it as well, but they are helping you to have the most stable infrastructure out there and most stable application out there. So we need to like keep ourselves updated with their offerings and make sure we implement those into our infrastructure to save more and more cost. So I think that would be some pointers that maybe I can add up.
I think looking at it from a overall business unit kind of an approach, it also depends on how you have what costing models that you're using inside your own company. Like there's always this limited cost monitoring where everybody, there is only certain chunk of people or one team which is actually responsible for looking after the monitoring of your cloud infrastructure and everything like that. And then there are other approaches as well in which there can actually everybody has the insight into what the cost is happening. So that's more of a proactive approach where every employee of the company feels responsible and knows what's happening towards the cost side with whatever I'm doing. And then there are also the famous chargeback model, in which actually your IT team kind of serves other business units the cloud infrastructure as a customer. They treat other business unit and they kind of like the costing is happening in that approach. So it also you can't really directly jump back to the chargeback approach itself, but of course starting from the based on your company size and all that, it always starts from a limited monitoring approach, and then you start as your company grows, you kind of like start changing your approach to based on however you're able to control things and however you're able to have full visibility into things. So there's that aspect to it as well, other than of course the technical stuff that we talked about. So there are multiple layers of how this can be done, and of course doing it at every layer is, again, it comes back to the same thing that we talked about in the first thing, which was the cost conscious culture actually. So you have to understand all the layers where the cost optimizations can be happening, and you just implement them.
I really like the term you use over here, chargeback and showback. Obviously that can create the ownership culture, and as we said, we need to highlight the winnings on that. So these kind of methodologies always help.
They may not be that easy to implement.
Yeah.
Like chargeback is pretty difficult.
It would be
to
the right
implement.
direction at
but
least.
But for bigger corporates, yes, that is the go-to mechanism. But then again, showback can be a better approach if you're like a more closely knit team, and you do understand every employee is doing their due diligence and
So now,
understand.
since we have talked about we need to have something of ownership, and obviously we need to have something of automation and we need to have something that is monitoring our infrastructure, saving costs and everything. So that is all discussed that we need to make sure have in our infrastructure. Now let's this is a very important part of every cost saving. We need to make sure have some governance around that as well. So if we talk about we need to have some governance, what kind of governance we are looking for, and how exactly it can help us to manage our cloud costs as well. Maybe obviously it will help us optimize the cost as well, because it will like iterate things from the top to bottom, or maybe because we have talked about bottom to top approach. Now how exactly it should be, I think Taimoor, if you go first on
I
that.
think first of all, the best part about our discussion today, that cloud cost optimization, it's not just about technical. It's about people, it's about the culture, it's about the finances. It's about the technical part. I think everything needs to be working, like I said in the beginning. Everything needs to work in sync, in parallel, and in sync to for us to get together. As far as governance is concerned, I think I totally agree, Shuja, because if I can talk about the cloud cost culture, right? I mean, that is we can try to include it, but if you really need to speed it up, I think governing it would be a better idea. For that, we need certain ownership is required, but then again, we need to make sure there are certain projects. Everybody in a certain department owns up to their resources. Every developer owns up to their resources. We have proper processes to make sure so that we know what developer is using what resources, what project is using what resources, what department is using what or what division is using all resources. Currently, how many resources are being used, how many are being. We need to proper processes to make sure that what.
So basically, you are looking for the term processes and policies should be strong to make sure that governance is
good data governance. Sorry, me being a data guy, data governance comes. But for good governance, we definitely need strong policies and processes in place.
So, Sidra, would you agree with that, or maybe disagree, whatever it is?
No, absolutely. I mean, there's no disagreeing with that fact that it is the policies which are going to govern it, but then it's the execution part as well. Yeah. We talked about how we would be monitoring it. We talked about how we can make a policy around it. We talked about how which unit or how you're going to distribute the responsibility among your company individuals for it as well, right? So all of these things together. Their execution. I mean, I think that's pretty much what the governance is about.
So yeah, I totally agree as well. But I would be try to be a devil's advocate over here. So obviously, things do come from ownership culture. Obviously, that's the heaven we want to be in. But obviously, since there are human involvement, we need to make sure to allocate and establish specific budgets to specific entities in our company. Maybe it could be business falls running something on the cloud. It could be the data always helps. It could be like engineering department having a specific budget. Business could have a less budget, and engineering could have a higher budget on that. So this is how like allocating budget would have a better control, and obviously cost controlling on every aspect would always help you getting the right set of knowledge how exactly things are going on. And obviously process and policies are the core of everything. We need to make sure the policies we implemented it being processed as we expect, and keep repeating everything, like revisit that. If we need to make any changes, let's do that, and let's implement the changes. So should go in clockwork manner, that we agree. And governance is the key to make sure that things are going in a clockwork manner. Therefore, less process and policy are there. So I think that's what a very healthy discussion around cloud optimization, cloud saving in a many technical way discussion. So it was really nice having you first discussing this with me, especially because we are like working in 3 different directions, but yes, having the similar problem. So it was like nice having you guys over here, and looking forward for many other topics to discuss. And all you folks have a good day, and maybe see you next in the next topic. Maybe it could be around cloud optimizing your compute resources. Not next time we will be not talking about saving costs, maybe implementing more and more costs for the architecture. So have a nice day, guys. Bye.